Hello, happy Monday. Purse Strings is here today to talk about retirement and inflation. So, welcome to this wonderful conversation. My name is Maggie, and I'm a partner at Purse Strings. We're all about providing free financial education and a whole network of Purse Strings approved professionals who love to serve the female market. We call those our Purse Strings approved professionals, and they're from financial advisors to realtors, mortgage brokers, attorneys. We got everybody you need on your team. And so we are bringing on Marguerita Cheng today, and she's a Purse Strings approved professional. And so we're so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Before we get started, could you share with the audience who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Marguerita Cheng. You can call me Margarita or Rita, and I'm a certified financial planner, CFP Pro, based here in DC Metro. And I'm so excited to be here because I am passionate about financial planning.
Awesome. I'm excited to dig in because inflation has been a big talk of the time. We've heard it all over today or recently. And so with retirement, that can be kind of scary. So could you just kind of give us a quick overview of where inflation is kind of right now? What's the status?
So, of course, I listen to the news. I'm based here in the DMV, that's DC, Maryland, Virginia. And I got to tell you, I probably listen to too much news. I mean, I'm not necessarily watching the TV, but I listen to it. So, some data did come out over the end of last week and over the weekend that inflation isn't as high this month as it was last month, but inflation is still real. And there are certain types of costs that do inflate higher than overall prices of goods and services, and in particular, healthcare, prescription drugs, and of course, education.
Yep, we see those rising all the time. I mean, even year over year, we see that huge inflation of both of those. So, how does this inflation affect kind of, the way people are planning for retirement?
Well, sure. The one thing I did want to say that's positive, technology has actually decreased. So you can, if appropriate, upgrade to a faster laptop as you send your kids off to school, or even for you if you're working at home. So the cost of technology has actually gone down. So inflation, how does that impact one's retirement plan? So when I develop financial plans, I actually don't put all the expenses in at once, and I don't have them all inflate at the same rate. I have long term care, or the cost of long term care, not just insurance, but the cost of care inflate at 7%. The other thing that I do is, still my grandmother lived to be 94. And when I am doing, yes, and my grandmother was in assisted living for 2 weeks. She walked out. We decided that it wasn't appropriate for her to drive, but when she was 88, she said she didn't want to be with these old people.
I love it.
So, don't you love it? So when I'm developing financial plans for people, I tell people that we don't really know how long we're going to be on this earth. I am not going to be the type of advisor that is going to scare you and say that you're going to die tomorrow. But if you are healthy, active, and fit, particularly if you are a woman and you have made it to 68 without heart disease, cancer, or diabetes, you have a very strong probability of making it to 88. And so I am always factoring in expenses. So when we're in our 80s and 90s, we're still going to travel and be active, but maybe we're not going to travel as much. So I'll have those expenses go down. And then I'll also incorporate cost of, long-term care or some type of home health aid.
Yeah, because as they say, we think those are our cheap years, but really at the end, it's the most expensive with all the help that we need at the time. But that's interesting how you rate things differently about how much they're going to inflate, because as you mentioned to start, schools and healthcare inflate much faster than other things, technologies, cars, or whatever that may be. Go ahead.
Oh, no, absolutely. And it's important to have different types of investments. So we need cash, our liquidity buckets. And some people say, well, if I have a lot of money in cash reserves, I'm slowly losing money. And I understand. But here's what I tell people. We want to make sure that we have short-term savings for any emergencies or opportunities to cover liquidity in the shorter term. Shorter term, I'm meaning anything less than 3 years. And then the best way in which we can combat inflation for the long term is equities, stocks. Now, they are subject to market fluctuation. So this is why I think it's really important to have bookends. We have our liquidity buckets, and then we have our longevity bucket.
Awesome. Yeah, you do need those, and because you do need to be able to get your cash if you need it right away, versus kind of that long-term plan, which makes a lot of sense. And so, what should people do if they're kind of anxious about their retirement in this inflation time? If they're a couple years out, before they retire?
So one of the things that I would say is take a look at your expenses. So the reason why I want people to think about this differently is you have some expenses. I don't like to say the word fixed. I'm going to say they're core and essential. So here's what I mean. Your electricity bill may not be fixed, and this is why I don't want people to be stuck, but it's core and essential. And then I want you to look at your variable or lifestyle expenses. And notice I didn't say discretionary. Like some people may look at me and say, Marguerita, you spend way too much money on coffee. That's discretionary. But if I have to wake up at 3:45 to take someone to practice, that is not discretionary. It is essential. So I want you to look at your core/essential expenses and then your lifestyle variable expenses. And you want to try to match your sustainable, predictable income with those core essential expenses. And one of the things we can do that is by looking at what sources of income we have coming to us. Social Security is the foundation. And we can take Social Security as early as 62. But if we're earning beyond the Social Security earnings limit, it may not make sense to do that. Now, do we need to wait till we're 70? No, there's a happy medium. So first thing, if you're concerned, is take a look at your expenses and then try to match your essential core expenses with regular predictable income. And then you can look at the variable expenses, and that's when like your savings may be able to help address that, as well as maybe part-time work if that's appropriate.
Those are great pieces of advice. And yes, it is to everyone, your essentials are different based on your own individual person. You can't judge each other's essentials these days. But that sounds like a great plan. Kind of see what's coming in, see what's going out, and where, you can make some room in that equation.
Absolutely, particularly for women who, everyone, this is for everyone, regardless of their relationship status. So everyone should go to ssa.gov to look at their Social Security benefits on their individual earnings history. However, if you are married, it's important to make these decisions in coordination. So here's what I mean. My parents were 14 years apart. When my dad was 70, my mommy was 56. God bless my dad. My dad studied mathematics. He's like, you know what? I'm waiting till I'm 70. Now, my dad retired from IBM at 60 and he got a pension. But from 60 to 70, my dad was young. My dad was healthy, knowledge economy worker. He consulted. So during those 10 years, he consulted, and daddy waited till he was 70. Why? The numbers made sense, but I love my dad so much, even though he's no longer here. I will always love my dad. My dad said, I looked at the numbers and I want to protect mommy. So I'm waiting till 70. So my dad passed away. Like I said, of course we missed him, but my dad did many things. But one of the most amazing things he did was protect my mommy by locking in the largest survivor benefits. Because when he passed away, my mom's smaller Social Security check dropped off, but then my mommy's benefit bumps up to his.
Yeah, Social Security is very complex, I think. But you do have to know what your partner gets and what you get. And your dad was very smart there to really protect her in that way, because if you do start much earlier, it's a much smaller sum. So he was very smart in that way to really protect your mom, which is great.
Absolutely. And that helps with Social Security because when you hear the government say, hey, here's the COLA for Social Security, my mommy is having um, a source of inflation protected guaranteed life income.
And so you can go on now and check out what your Social Security looks like.
You absolutely can. So this is what I tell people. Every single one of my clients, even if people aren't clients, it's that I say the number one thing you can do is go to ssa.gov and create an online account, and then you'll be able to see your earnings history. And you can see your benefits at age 62, at full retirement age, and then at age 70.
Oh, wow. I had no idea you could go check that out. So that's awesome. And it's a great tool to kind of start predicting or, seeing what the future is going to look like.
Absolutely, it can help you plan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because, yeah, you need those higher earning years, but, you can track it along the way. What else should we know about the inflation right now? Are there any other things that we should do to kind of protect ourselves financially or to be best prepared in this time of flux?
Sure. So, as mentioned, we need to have money in the short term for liquidity so that we don't have to sell our stocks at an inopportune time or our stock mutual funds. And we also need to stay invested for the long haul. So, sometimes people say to me, oh my gosh, is it a good time to invest? And I tell people, if you need this money in less than 3 years, you probably don't want to invest. But even if you are retiring within the next 3 to 5 years, you're still long-term investors. So one of the things I really want people to think about is if you're scared and stressed, definitely consult with any of these purse strings approved providers. But the best way in which you can prepare yourself is to take advantage of tax deferred and tax free investing, as well as dollar cost averaging, which is a fancy way for saying you're investing regular amounts on a consistent basis, and they don't have to be large amounts. I helped a 70-year-old open a Roth IRA. It's never too late. And
I
that
love it.
$50 contribution, now she's, and we're, the stock market hasn't necessarily been cooperating, but she's like, I understand what you mean, Rita. I get in when the market's high, I get in when it's low. She paid off her car, and now she's doing $400 a month to a Roth IRA.
I love it. I love it. And it does equal out by the end, over the lifetime. Some days you might have, when you put in $50, it seems like less stock, and sometimes it seems like you get more stock, but at the end, they really do balance out. And that's why consistency is really key on some of those things.
Without question. So that is the key to building wealth and helping prepare for inflation.
Yeah, it's a very slow and steady process, but you just got to keep moving forward. And so, yeah, it seems like, if you don't want to invest the money that you're going to need in the next 3 years, but otherwise, jump in because you want that money to grow.
Absolutely. This is where it's not about trying to time the market, but the time you're in the market. So the sooner you start, and even if you're a little bit nervous, you only start with $50 and then you increase it each time. That's what really matters. So like you said, be consistent and also progress.
Progress. Yep. There it is. And so, yeah, if you're near retirement, it can be kind of angsty, but, we just have to keep going along with it and talk to your financial professional if you do have questions about your situation. But that's part of your guys' job too, is, this is going to happen sometimes and plan around that, as, prices always inflate and deflate all the time over history. And so do you have any other pieces of advice before we wrap up today?
I would just remind everyone to go to ssa.gov. And if you haven't participated in your employer sponsored plan, definitely take advantage of the match. And if you've done that, one way in which you can prepare for inflation now and in the retirement is to take advantage of as you get pay increases or you pay things off, you can increase your savings. Because remember this, there is no financial aid in retirement.
That is true. That is true. And I did want to bring up one thing real quick, because before when we jumped on, we were talking about how a lot of people want to help their kids with school, and that kind of affects then your retirement. So you want to plan that accordingly as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when I opened up, I said that I am a certified financial planner. I'm also a mom of three. And while my kids are older, this is what told my kids. I said I was going to help them in school, but I also set parameters because what I told them is like, what you don't want is you don't want me to pay everything full fare. And then in retirement, I'm a burden. You have to support me. And they all joke. We're like, well, mommy, we love you so much. So here's what I mean by that. There will be merit-based aid. There'll be need-based aid and even athletic or interest-based financial aid for your kids, but they will not be financial aid for you in retirement. So it does not mean that you saddle your children with a lot of debt, but you help them in a way that does not harm your ability to plan for your financial independence.
Yeah, and your kids will thank you for that as well in the long run.
Absolutely.
Because that was not the trade that we signed up for. No, but inflation, we hear it all the time, but there's nothing to be overly worried about. We're going to stay consistent. We're going to just keep pushing forward. And yeah, sounds great. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they have questions or want to work with you?
Sure. So if you have any questions, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Marguerita Cheng. I'm on Twitter at Blue Ocean GW, or you can visit my website, blueoceanglobalwealth.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today and giving us this wonderful information. And we will see everyone again here next week. So thank you. Goodbye.